The Comprehensive Guide to Apologetics, General Editor Joseph M. Holden. Critique, Chapter 2. What about a short history of apologetics? John Warwick Montgomery. Oh yeah, let's strap in and enjoy the ride.
Good day, folks! Now that we've read Chapter 2, the link will be in the description. Let's see if we have any issues with it. Without further ado.
Alright, as I have stated within the description of our Chapter 2 reading, I don't know much about church history, and I know even less about the Christian apologetic history. So nevertheless, I found the information given to be interesting. And as I delve more into church history, I could probably most likely make a better assessment of how he put together his history of church apologetics. How Montgomery put it together, I should say. Even with such being the case, there are a few things we can discuss and contend with, I believe. So right out the gate, I believe he tells a lie. Quote, "The history of the defense of the Christian faith is coterminous with the history of Christianity itself. This is the case because Christianity, unlike religions of the East such as Buddhism and Hinduism, is non-syncretic." End quote. Just on the face of it, we have a biblical passage within 2 Timothy 3:16 that states that all scripture is given by inspiration of God. And when Montgomery elaborates further about the type of evidences one could offer for his position or the truth of his position, they're all examples from the Bible. So seemingly, Montgomery and the Bible wants readers to, quote, accept its revelational character simply because the text claims to be true, end quote. First of all, Christianity is an offshoot of Judaism. So the claim that Christianity is non-syncretic is demonstrably false. And second of all, if you look into the beliefs of the peoples of the time, like the Greek beliefs and the Middle Eastern beliefs that were rolling around at the time, Jesus Christ is most certainly a syncretic figure. The character depicted in the Bible did nothing, and I mean nothing extraordinary or different from other mythological figures or other figures found in historical texts. Jesus Christ has been compared to other gods and demigods like Attis, Apollo, Dionysus, and others. I have found that this book by Kersey Graves, The World's 16 Crucified Saviors, Christianity Before Christ, to be a good resource that started me down that road to demonstrate that Jesus was indeed a syncretic figure. The Jesus Christ of the Bible, to be clear. I believe that there was a man, maybe his name was Yeshua, and he had followers and the Romans crucified him. I believe there was a real person, but the character in the Bible I do not believe was real. Research the Bar Kokhba revolt and research the Parthian king who almost waged war against the Romans, believing that a resurrected Nero was going to lead them to victory. History is actually replete with claims of people being gods or demigods. It's not uncommon. And Jesus Christ fits right in there with all those other legends and mythological suppositions. And this, of course, is a good segue. Quote, "The biblical apologetic focuses in 4 areas: and these are subsequently employed throughout Christian history. Miracle, fulfilled prophecy, natural revelation, and personal experience. End quote. All right, so let's take each in turn, along with the caveats if they're relevant. So the first one is miracle, and there's not one shred of historical evidence that can corroborate the supernatural or miracle claims. Not a one. So, I mean, if you're going to accept something like the Bible or any other so-called holy text as evidence, then you're going to have to accept every other miracle claim and every other God associated with the miracle claim as well. Because what's the criteria from differentiating the miracle claims of other religious figures or the miracle claims in, say, some ancient historical text with the miracle claims in the Bible? What's to distinguish those claims with the claims found in the Bible? What's the criteria that you use? The miracle claims that are purported to have happened today, whenever investigated, cannot be determined to be miraculous, and also we cannot even determine that the cause was divine or from a god or supernatural. So we cannot determine that that miracles occur, and even if we could, we still cannot determine why the miracle is occurring. And if a miracle is the object of prophecy, then you can just toss out the prophecy, because you cannot make any determinations about the origins of a miracle. Or, and worst of all, you can't even determine if miracles are even possible. Because if miracles were possible, then why is there a need for fine-tuning of the universe? Why do we even have a universe? God can just miracle this planet and miracle life on it. We don't need a universe with all of its mass and its gravitation and everything else. We don't need none of it. This God could just miracle anything into existence, because its miracles are literal suspensions of natural law. And if you suspend natural law and introduce magic, well, you can just do anything. The next apologetical approach is concerned with fulfilled prophecy. Now, many prophecies are extremely vague and difficult to translate, but even the ones that aren't vague, they seem to be getting translated in multiple different ways by multiple different people, and there doesn't seem to be any criteria at all on how to interpret these prophecies. There doesn't seem to be any criteria at all how to interpret the Bible, and that's probably why there are some 40,000 plus Christian denominations and sects, S-E-C-T-S, and you guys collectively disagree on almost every major doctrine, including who Jesus is, what it takes to be saved, and how to interpret the Bible. This is a real problem that very few Christians actually talk about. And the other problem is that the Jews do not agree that Jesus Christ fulfilled prophecies. And now, I haven't delved into this a whole lot just yet, and I'm about to. So the claim I'm about to make is tentative. This is something you're going to have to look into yourself. But this is the claim. Seemingly, Jesus Christ, depicted in the Bible, did not actually fulfill any messianic prophecies. And then the ones that are attributed to him are either not prophecies, or they are misinterpreted or misapplied prophecies. So you're going to have to take a look at those claims on your own, but the things I'm looking at so far seem to indicate that, just to let you know. So just to reiterate, Jesus did not fulfill messianic prophecies. None of them. He didn't fulfill any of them. And this is why the Jews crucified him, or had him crucified. He claimed to be the Messiah, and he was not the Messiah. Isaiah 66 and 65 talk about the new heaven and the new earth, and that everybody will go to Jerusalem and know that God is there, basically. And this is on the earth, like the new heaven and the new earth is on the earth, and people are going to be born and die there, according to Isaiah 66, 66 rather. And many other messianic passages all talk about a king who's going to sit on the throne of David forever, and there'll be peace all over the earth. Jesus did not fulfill any of these prophecies. And that's why the doctrine of the second coming had to be invented. The second coming and the idea that prophecies can have multiple meanings is not in the Old Testament. It's just shit the New Testament writers made up. Matthew chapter 2, verse 13. And when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise, and take the young child and his mother, and flee into Egypt, and be thou there until I bring thee word. For Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. When he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night, and departed into Egypt, and was there until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken of the Lord by the prophet, saying, Out of Egypt have I called my son. Then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceedingly wroth, and sent forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem and in all the coast thereof, from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had diligently inquired of the wise men. Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremy the prophet, saying, In Ramah was there a voice heard, lamentation and weeping and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children, and would not be comforted because they are not. Okay, so we have two quotations from prophets that Matthew is using here. One being, I called my son out of Egypt, found in Hosea 11:1. And then the other was the quotation, chapter 2, verse 18, when he tries to quote Jeremiah the prophet in relation to women weeping because their children was killed by Herod. The problems are these. Hosea 11:1 is not talking about the Messiah. It's talking about Israel. Hosea is just giving a brief little history about Israel. That's it. It's not talking about the Messiah. And then Jeremiah 31:15, basically the whole chapter, the whole book, it's talking about Israel going into exile, and these specific verses are talking about the women of Israel, weeping over their sons and their husbands. Basically, their children are being carried off into exile, and Jeremiah is about to comfort them because, the people are supposed to come back. This is part of the prophecy. So that's not talking about Herod and killing a bunch of children. In fact, I don't even think we have any evidence that actually happened the way Matthew recorded. I don't think it happened at all. So again, Matthew is just making stuff up. And the rest of the gospel writers, they do the same. There is not a single prophecy that Jesus actually fulfilled in the Old Testament. It's all, when Jesus come back, this is the thing that he'll do. But even the description of what he's supposed to do when he comes back doesn't match the Old Testament, because in the Old Testament, the Levite priests, if you look at, again, Isaiah 65 and 66, the Levite priests are going to come back, and they're going to start all the whole sacrificial system is going to start back up, and the Messiah is going to be leading the sacrifices. This is why the Jews rejected Jesus. He didn't do any of this stuff. Okay, so in the future, I may put together all the prophecies concerning the Messiah and then show how Jesus didn't fulfill any of them, and then show also how the New Testament gospel writers just made crap up as far as the fulfillment of other so-called prophecies. So that may come in the future. The third and fourth area of focus, natural revelation and personal experience respectively, I think they're both terrible arguments. I mean, and he kind of agrees with his caveats, because he says the natural revelation, it's the least important, and that's a very politic way of saying that natural revelation is bunk. And then the other, with personal experience, his caveat there is that it has to, it can't, quote, floats free. It can never float free. It has to be grounded in some type of objectivity. And then he names miracle and prophecy, which I think is bunk. But I would agree that your personal experiences should be grounded in the objective world around you. I mean, unless it's just a strict personal experience that you know what I mean, that requires no, like I say, a dream. That's a strict personal experience that requires no evidence, objective evidence rather. But I'm saying, if you're going to make a truth claim about the world around you, your personal experience is terrible evidence, because it's once again, if your personal experience is valid, like, I don't doubt people have experiences. That's not what I'm trying to say. People do have all kinds of experiences. I doubt that their explanation for such experiences ends up with a God. That's what I doubt. But yeah, people have all kinds of religious experiences, and we can actually simulate these with brain stimulation and drugs. But that's aside from the point. So I'm not doubting that they're having these experiences, but I do doubt that I doubt the experience, that they understand the cause of the experience. That's what I'm doubting. So both personal experience and natural revelation, I think all the apologetics for both of these are really bad. I wouldn't use them. They're not convincing to me, and they're not convincing to many unbelievers. Personal experiences are a lot like the miracle claims. If I'm going to accept somebody's personal experience about, say, the Christian God, then I'm also going to have to accept someone else's personal experience about the Muslim God, or the many gods in Hinduism, or et cetera, et cetera. Like, unless you can have some type of methodology to differentiate between the personal experiences of one person and the personal experiences of another as equating to truth, your personal experience is not it's not evidence, unfortunately. For you it might be, but for everybody else it's not evidence. All right, quote, Eusebius of Caesarea, in his ecclesiastical history, employs a testimonial argument in support of Christ's miraculous resurrection from the dead, sarcastically asking whether it would be reasonable to suppose that the apostles, had they known that Jesus did not rise from the dead, would have lost all they had and ultimately been martyred, whilst maintaining that he had in fact conquered death. End quote. I think the only textual evidence we have of any of Christ's 12 disciples, or 13, whatever, being martyred, I think we only have textual evidence of one disciple. I believe it was James, not the brother of Jesus, the other one. But anyway, for the rest of the 11, all we have as evidence for martyrdom is Catholic tradition. So we don't really know if the other 11 disciples were martyred or not. That's just a claim. And the other thing, and I hear this a lot from Christians, like, oh, if it was a lie, and if the disciples knew it was a lie, why would they die for it? Well, they didn't know it was a lie. They were just sincerely mistaken. The gospel texts were written in the legendary mythological prose of the time. I have no reason to believe that the gospels or anything in the New Testament really is historically reliable. I mean, maybe in some instances, like trade routes, city names, ruler names, things of that nature. But as far as the supernatural claims especially, I do not believe that any of that stuff occurred. So as far as the narrative goes, I don't believe that any of the disciples actually witnessed the resurrection of Christ or actually saw the risen Christ, except maybe one, or I would guess maybe one did and told the story, and everybody in their grief just wanted to believe it. And then you have the 500 witnesses that Paul mentions, I believe, in 1 Corinthians. That's hearsay upon hearsay. I don't trust the word of Paul, and we don't know what those witnesses saw. We're just trusting what Paul said, and I'm not going to do that. This is the same guy that claims the law was temporary, and which is a direct contradiction of what Deuteronomy says, because the law is supposed to be practiced forever. Read Deuteronomy 4:40, and this is what Deuteronomy 5:29 says. Oh, that there was such an heart in them that they would fear me and keep all my commandments always, that it might be well with them and with their children forever. The Mosaic law was never supposed to go away, and the Levitic sacrifices and the priesthood, that was never supposed to go away. And when the Messiah comes back, if the Messiah ever comes back, that's what's going to happen. He's going to be a king that sits on the throne of Israel forever. The Levites will be back, and there'll be peace all over the earth. That's what's supposed to happen when the Messiah comes. And then the Levite priests are going to restart up all the sacrifices. The temple's going to be rebuilt, all that. The Old Testament even tells you that the Messiah is going to preside over some of these animal sacrifices. In the book of Ezekiel, chapter 45, we're going to start with verse 15, but the context is God's parsing out the physical land to the children of Israel, and he's talking about the ordinances and the sacrifices that he wants to reinstitute. We're going to start with verse number 15, and then we're going to go and read all the way through verse 17. So Ezekiel 45, 15 through 17. And one lamb out of the flock, out of 200, out of the fat pastures of Israel, for a meat offering, and for a burnt offering, and for peace offerings, to make reconciliation for them, saith the Lord God. All the people of the land shall give this oblation for the prince in Israel. And it shall be the prince's part to give burnt offerings, and meat offerings, and drink offerings in the feasts, and in the new moons, and in the Sabbaths, and in all solemnities of the house of Israel. He shall prepare the sin offering, and the meat offering, and the burnt offering, and the peace offerings, to make reconciliation for the house of Israel. So if this was what the Messiah was supposed to do, Jesus didn't do any of it, and Christian theology explicitly states that all of these types of offerings and sacrifices are supposed to be done away with. Nowhere in the Old Testament does the God of the Old Testament say that the law was temporary and that it was supposed to be abolished. Nowhere. So that's a huge conflict within Judaism and in Christianity. And one of the main reasons why Jews do not think that Jesus was the Messiah. He didn't do any of the stuff he was supposed to do. See, that much I do know. Christ did not fulfill these prophecies. Now, the claim that he's supposed to come back and fulfill these prophecies, I don't buy it, for one. And I don't think the Old Testament supports a suffering Messiah that's supposed to come, suffer, die, and then come back. I don't think the Old Testament supports that idea at all. Christianity is built upon two things: Judaism and the resurrection. The Jewish scriptures and Jewish scholars say Jesus wasn't the Messiah, and there isn't any good evidence to conclude that Jesus Christ rose from the dead bodily. All we have is a claim in the Bible that Jesus Christ rose from the dead. And we also have extra biblical historical claims about what people believed. What we don't have is any evidence that Jesus Christ actually rose from the dead. As previously stated, historical claims for the supernatural cannot be corroborated. You have no methodology to differentiate the miracle claims or the supernatural claims in the Bible or any other supernatural claim. That's the problem. Under 17th century apologetics, quote, Pascal's posthumously collected Hensi's thoughts offer a powerful apologetic for the truth of biblical revelation and the saving work of Christ. His wager, even if Christianity were false, in accepting it you would be better off, for you would obtain the best ethic and the best human example, Jesus, was not intended as the totality of his apologetic, as his philosophical critics generally maintain, in order to make it appear silly. End quote. Maybe you'll live a good ethical life. I guess it really depends on which Christian group you fall into. But Pascal's wager entails a little bit more about living a good life even if Christianity is false. Because if it's true and you don't become a Christian, well then the punishment is eternity in hellfire, right? And this is why critics think it's silly, because it presents a false dichotomy. If I have to consider a wager like this about the Christian God, then I also have to consider that the other gods and their hells are also on the table. So it's not just either I choose Christianity or it's hell. It's either I choose Christianity or a number of other religions that posit posthumous punishment for unbelief or for various sins or whatever you have, you know. Whatever those gods deem as, quote, sinful, unquote, and will send you to a very bad afterlife, all of that's on the table too. So how am I to differentiate between the Christian hell, the Muslim hell, the Hindu hell, or any other, the Greek gods, they had Tartarus. Like, how are we to differentiate between all of these hells and all of these, you know, great places or heavens that we get to go to? How do we know? How do we know which is true and which is just mythology? Or perhaps it's all mythology. How would we know? Much more could be criticized, that I am sure. But before I go, I will say that I do appreciate Montgomery and others that think like him. I appreciate and commend them. I commend their position that unbelievers are still able to reason about the world around them and the universe. Presuppositional argumentation is the National Enquirer of apologetics. They are the gutter magazine of apology, and I pay no attention to people willing to lie to my face about what I do and do not believe. Additionally, I do not aim to find all that could be criticized in anything really, because I expect my audience to be able to think for themselves. Don't take my word for these things. Look into these things for yourself. So as we continue to read and consider the claims therein, think for yourself. And we will discover what this book has to reveal together.
And that's what I got for you, folks. As always, be well on your journey.